Hi everyone, and welcome back to Skincare and Beyond with Face the Future. I'm Julia, and I'll be hosting the podcast today. When we think about skincare, we naturally focus on what we're applying topically, the products we use, the routines we follow, and the results that we're hoping to see. But increasingly, we're seeing a much bigger shift towards understanding what's actually happening internally and how much of an impact that can have, not just on our skin, but how we feel day to day. Things like energy levels, sleep, hormones, and nutrition all play a huge role, and often they're more connected than we might realise. And for many women, symptoms like fatigue, poor sleep, and brain fog are often just accepted as part of everyday life, rather than something we stop and properly explore. So today, I'm delighted that we're going to be stepping slightly beyond skincare and look at the bigger picture to understand why a more personalised approach to health might be key. To guide us through that journey, I'm joined by Megan Hallett. Welcome. She is the head of nutrition at Now, Often and Always. So Megan, welcome to Skincare and Beyond.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm really excited about this conversation because it is going to take us beyond what I would normally talk about on a podcast. So it's something new for me as well. So really excited. Let's start at the beginning then. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Now, Often and Always, which we can see is Noah there.
It's Noah. So yes.
Good branding.
Yeah. So I'm the head of nutrition at Noah. My role very much, so I'm the person that's giving the one-on-one consultations. I'm looking through blood tests. I'm looking through questionnaire results. I'm taking all of that information and creating a hyper-personalised plan for our customers. I got into this job because I personally struggled with a few of my own healthcare problems. When I was 18, I was diagnosed with PCOS, or now PMOS, it's called. And I just found that I was going to so many doctor's appointments, talking to so many specialists, and no one could really give me any answers, but answers that were so personal to what I needed. Okay. So back then, PCOS wasn't that well understood.
What is it for our listeners that have not heard of it before?
Yeah, so PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's now called PMOS, which is polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome.
That's easy for you to say.
I have to remember it now. It essentially is when the body is overproducing androgens, which is testosterone. And it does this because the body is not sensitive to insulin. So your insulin is dysregulated. So that's where the metabolic component comes in. And women with PCOS may find that their cycles are irregular or really long or missing completely. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a cycle until my early 20s. Okay. Skin acne is quite common because of those high androgens. Hair loss, my hair was falling out like years on end. And I think that when it isn't life-threatening, people don't take it seriously. Mm. So yeah, again, lots of appointments back and forths with GPs. The answers were go on the pill, or there are a handful of other medications, but never once was I given any nutrition advice or any lifestyle advice.
Okay.
The only advice was to lose weight. Right. And I, at that point in my teenage years, was already struggling with kind of food and body image. I then, from that point, just, got obsessed with understanding other women's health conditions and the role that nutrition and lifestyle could play.
So how did you make that link then? Because the story that you're telling me, I've heard from people that ring up and speak to us on the customer services helpline, in that, often when they go to see a GP, the answer is medication, as opposed to actually looking at lifestyle and what can be done naturally to try and improve somebody's situation. Yeah. So if you were told at an early age that the answer was the pill or medication, how did you find the connection between what you were eating and doing on a day-to-day basis and the impact that was having on your condition?
Yeah, and I think that, and we're, I'm very pro medication in the right circumstance. Yes. But my issue is that the medications that were offered were almost acting as a bit of a plaster for the symptoms and not getting to the root of the issue. So again, with PCOS, we have this insulin dysregulation. And the solution was to block those androgens, and therefore my skin would get better, my cycles would regulate, which we now know doesn't really happen with the pill. And no one, again, mentioned that insulin part. Whereas one of the most effective ways of regulating insulin is to think about protein, to think about fiber. And yeah, there was not really that advice given. So I went away, did a lot of research for myself, read, listened to podcasts. Again, there wasn't that much back then. But yeah, really educated myself and then went on to become fully qualified.
Perfect. So that was the key motivation factor to move into nutrition.
Yeah.
Fabulous. And actually, you're always more motivated when it's something that you're really passionate about, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And also just helping other women, listening to other women who have had very similar stories. So going to doctors, going to healthcare professionals, and just feeling unheard, feeling as though they're kind of at this dead end and they're not really getting anywhere with it. Being able to connect with those kinds of people is really, really rewarding. And that's what we love doing at NOAA so much, just having those conversations.
Perfect. So let's dig a little bit deeper then. You work with NOAA day in, day out, and you will no doubt speak to hundreds of women. Can you just talk me through some of the most common issues or most common symptoms that the people that you're talking to come to you with?
Yes. So we see a lot of fatigue that doesn't seem to be fixed by sleep. So we'll talk to women who are, sleeping well, get enough sleep, but just still wake up and feel groggy and don't quite feel right. Fatigue is probably the number one thing that we see. We see a lot of digestive issues. So bloating, maybe pain, gas. And again, a lot of that kind of comes from not really feeling calm, feeling like their nervous systems are a little bit dysregulated. Hormone issues, so maybe period pain, heavy periods, just things not quite feeling right.
And how often would people come to you with a mixture of those symptoms?
Very often.
Yeah.
It's, again, so symptoms are little flags, and it's usually a reflection of something deeper going on.
Yeah.
So for example, if someone is fatigued and they're feeling bloated, but they are really stressed, always in fight or flight, the fatigue and the bloating are a result. They are the flag being waved that there is an underlying stress issue or a nervous system issue.
Okay. And I don't know if you think this way, but I certainly do. I'm hearing people talk a lot more about fatigue, about PMS, about hormone imbalances. Why do you think that we're talking about it or hearing about it more now?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think we have more ways to talk about it. So we have social media, there are forums. I also think we talk about it more with our friends, maybe than we once did. We're more open, which is amazing. But I also think that we do live in this world that it is everything seems to be working against us. So we're on our phones at night, blue light, it's very easy to grab convenience food, stress. There's a lot of kind of underlying stress going on. So we're talking about these issues more, but I do think we live in this world where these issues just are a bit more common.
I think that we're talking about it more, but certainly amongst my friends and some of the customers that I speak to, we're not really questioning it. It's as if it's normal and we're just living with it. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I love to say just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
Yes.
And sometimes we connect. Like I have lots of conversations with my friends where we're like, I had a really rubbish period this month. And it's nice to be able to connect to your friends in those ways. But I think sometimes we take these things that are common and therefore assume that they're normal. And it's not always the case. Your period shouldn't be painful. You shouldn't be feeling like you can't make through the day without having a nap. So it's just because something is common doesn't mean that it's normal.
No, absolutely. So let's try and dig a little bit deeper then into the different symptoms that you've just talked about. So let's talk about fatigue. That seems to be a really big one. Why is it, do you think, that so many women are now feeling constantly tired all of the time?
Yeah, so we'll break it down. I think, again, there is a lot being asked of us. So there is a huge, you might have kids, you might have a demanding job, you might be thinking about organizing your house, seeing your friends. I think it is the external stresses, even if they are wonderful things, they can still be draining.
Yes.
Blood sugar imbalance is quite a common thing that I talk about during sessions. And what that means is, instead of having nice, stable blood sugar levels across the day, which usually keeps you feeling energized, calm, you're not craving sugar, it's quite easy to fall into a bit of a blood sugar roller coaster. So you get up, you don't have time, you grab a coffee, you might grab a cereal bar for your breakfast. So if you're on that blood sugar roller coaster throughout the day, that's going to leave you feeling depleted.
Yeah.
Again, there may be internal forms of stress. So we test nutrients at NOAA. So we look at your B12, your folate, your iron, and your vitamin D. And all of those play a role in vitality and energy. And it's very easy. Usually when I sit down with someone, one of those won't quite be optimal.
Okay.
And that may be because, you're not getting sun in the UK. Your vitamin D might drop. It might be you have heavy periods and therefore your iron is a little bit lower than it should be. So yes, we see a lot of nutrient depletions. And again, women who are trying to do it all and not eating enough, or maybe have been doing diets for their whole lives, and the amount that they actually need to fuel their body is being underestimated a little bit.
One of the things that I think I would find quite difficult to understand, and did find it quite difficult to understand, is when something isn't just normal everyday life. So you said, we normalise things. And actually one of the responses from our customer when we asked the customer question, we'll talk about it at the end, was around, isn't this just an effect of modern living? Yeah. When do you actually, or what triggers are there for you to recognise where actually this isn't normal, so there's something bigger at play?
Yeah, and that is where testing can be amazing, and it is very normal to have a full-on job, to have kids, to be doing a lot of things, and to get to the end of the day and just be feeling like, that was a tough one.
Yes.
That's normal. That's okay, because you have things that are draining your stores.
Yes.
But I think it's when, you start the day and you're already on the back foot. We use testing as almost a process of elimination. So if you are, if you kind of have an extreme level of fatigue that isn't in line with how much you are doing, can we look at your nutrients? Can we first of all address those and see if there's anything off there? Can we look at your thyroid? With our questionnaire, we do a bit of a food diary. So I'll assess if someone's eating enough or if they're eating the right foods for them. And therefore, we have evidence as to, is this a normal reflection of everyday life, or is there something else going on? And usually it's a combination of the two.
Yeah. Do you find that there's often some common root to the common causes to symptoms that women are displaying?
Yeah. Again, I think stress and just being in this always on fight or flight nervous system dysregulation is a really big one. Yes. And, a lot of our customers are eating well. They do have that education behind, I should be having enough protein, I should be getting my fiber. But then that stress comes in and it's like this wave that even if you're having the most amazing meals, it can kind of still throw things off. So stress is a big one for us that we see.
It could be quite normal that somebody feels as though they're doing all the right things, but still constantly feel exhausted.
Yeah. And your body remembers, I think, you can make amazing changes. And this isn't, I don't want this to sound disheartening, but you can make amazing changes. But if you've had a really, really stressful couple of years, it may just take your body a bit of time to feel normal again.
Okay. And that's interesting as well, because people do ask, how long does it take to start feeling normal again when you're making these changes? And I guess that's different for everybody. And we can talk about that when we talk about the personalised approach in a bit more detail. Just moving on then. So you talked about blood sugars and you talked about the energy dips and things. So is that one of the reasons why people would have this mid-afternoon crash then?
Definitely. It's usually the number one reason.
Okay.
So again, like I said, if you've got out of bed, if you've not started the day very well, you maybe have something that's higher carb or a sugary breakfast, and you're already up on a high, what goes up must come down.
Okay.
And when you are in that low blood sugar state, your body always wants quick fuel. Your body always wants something sweet to pull it back up. And I think we try and rely on willpower, or we tell ourselves off for having too much sugar or having cravings.
Yes.
But it's just your body's natural response to being in this
Yes.
up and down. So if you've had a lunch that, maybe isn't very well balanced, or you've had a fizzy drink, you've had some sweets alongside it, are you then in a bit of a blood sugar dip later on in the afternoon?
Yes.
And that's probably what's happening.
So when you're going into the dip, that's when your body's saying you need more of that sugar to take your energy levels back up.
Exactly. But if we have had nice, well-balanced meals with proteins and fiber and good carbs, hopefully you're in a bit of a stable line rather than this up and down all day long.
So how else would we stabilise our blood sugar then? So obviously taking care of what we're eating.
Yeah.
Is there other things at play in relation to how often we eat, when we eat, all of those things that I've read so much about?
Yes. Yeah. So ideally, you're not leaving massive gaps between meals.
Okay.
Everyone is different. Some people do love 3 main meals and no snacks. Other people like to include those snacks. What I don't love is lots of grazing throughout the day. Again, on those carby snacks, the cereal bars, because then you're having lots of little ups and downs. Stress plays a really big role in blood sugar regulation.
Yes.
So when you're stressed, your blood sugar raises to get ready to run from that threat. So that can sometimes be quite an underrated route.
Yes.
Exercise also is a really great one for regulating blood sugar levels. Walking, weightlifting, so you can kind of have a bit more of a holistic approach to it.
Okay. And what's your view on fasting? Because I'm reading so much now about fasting, intermittent fasting, skipping certain meals.
Yeah.
How does that impact on your blood sugar levels then?
Yeah. So everyone is so different. Sometimes the best way of understanding it is to try. We find that women respond very differently to men with a lot of things.
Okay.
And what I tend to say is, if you have a ton of stress, if you are exhausted, is fasting, is skipping a meal going to be productive to get you towards your goal?
Yes.
Not always. There are different points in our cycles where we may be a bit better and a bit more robust, and therefore can or leave a little bit longer between meals. But generally speaking, I think if you're thinking about energy, if you're thinking about vitality, if you want to improve your stress, I would give it a miss for most people.
Most people. Okay. And is there a link between energy levels and brain fog? I hear so much now, certainly women my age, saying about they have brain fog. So is there a link between those?
Yeah, definitely. So they go hand in hand, really. So it's almost mental energy and physical energy. And we'll always see. So if we see someone has reported fatigue on their questionnaire, they'll likely have said brain fog as well. When I think about brain fog, I'm still thinking about, are you fueling your body optimally? Are you getting the right nutrients that your brain needs to function? Iron plays a big role in both physical and mental energy. So they are related. And I think if you address physical fatigue, we should find that mentally you feel a bit more switched on as well.
So when women come to you and say they've got brain fog, what does it mean? What does brain fog actually mean? Yeah.
And I think when you have it. I think there's a lot of, I can't find my words, I can't focus. And there is this just fuzzy, kind of foggy feeling, really. And you can have physical energy. You can feel energized in your body, but just still feel like you can't quite focus on a task or talk to someone without fumbling your words. So that's what I tend to hear.
Yeah, certainly. Mine was definitely forgetting the words. Couldn't remember. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. Or I'd say something and then somebody would look at me and say, what is it you're trying to tell me? Because what I thought I'd said wasn't what came out of my mouth.
Yes.
But I didn't know that until somebody said to me, Julia, what are you talking about?
What are you saying? And I think we see it more with women. Again, I might be biased because I only work with women.
Yes.
And usually that's because our hormones, so our estrogen and our progesterone, have such direct action in our brains. So as we see our estrogen and our progesterone fluctuate not only across our menstrual cycles, but across the life cycle. So pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, that's when we tend to see things shift as well. So as we have that increase and then decrease in estrogen and progesterone, we find that impacts how well you can articulate, but also that mental energy as well.
So hormones play a massive role in our energy and in our brain fog and our ability to function then, don't they?
Definitely. And, we test testosterone. And I think, again, that's quite an underrated hormone when we think about women's health.
Yes.
Now getting a bit more attention in the HRT space,
Yeah,
which is
definitely
really exciting.
it is. Let's link into HRT then, or link into cycles, I guess. How often are you seeing issues with PMS, irregular cycles, those types of things in women?
Yeah, very often.
Okay.
And I see two different types of women. One, it is a reflection of that lifestyle.
Okay.
So again, someone may be really stressed, they may be under eating. And then we are seeing, again, these flags as a result of this underlying issue.
Yes.
We also work with women who are predisposed to having hormone issues.
Okay.
So PMDD, which is a more severe form of PEMS, again, PCOS, endometriosis. So yes, we see hormone imbalance as the result of lifestyle decisions, but also some women are predisposed or have these conditions underlying.
Obviously, you've just talked about some of the conditions that people might have. Is there other common symptoms that somebody could recognise in themselves and think, actually, this is hormones, something bigger at play here?
Yeah, definitely. So most of the time you'll see it in your cycles, but not always.
Yeah.
So because your hormones are active and they affect every system in the body, they're chemical messengers. So they play a role in every single system. So you may find that before your periods, you are just feeling really miserable, really low, anxious. We might find that your periods themselves are really difficult. You are feeling pain, fatigue during your period, heaviness. We may also find that around mid-cycle ovulation, things don't quite feel right as well. And then, mood, mental health, sleep, those can also be affected by your hormones as well.
Do the symptoms differ between women that would maybe be on some type of contraception compared to women that aren't? Because, of course, contraception's meant to balance out your hormones as well.
Yeah, so if you are having hormonal symptoms whilst on contraception, I would look a bit further.
Okay.
Because, again, deficiencies can disguise as hormone imbalance.
Okay.
So if you've got an issue with your thyroid, if you've got an issue with low nutrients, that may present as a hormone imbalance. But yes, the contraception should kind of flatten everything out rather than you having these lovely peaks across the cycle.
So everything that you've been saying to me, I recognise from either myself or from my friends that I've spoken to or customers that I've spoken to. Why is it that you think so many of us just accept that this is something we just have to live with and there's nothing we can do about it?
Yeah, I think honestly, we see it. A lot of us have seen it in the generations before us. So a lot of us have seen our mums, grandmas, aunties suffer through it.
Yes.
And again, I think we maybe wear it as a badge of honor, that it's like, oh, I had this horrible period or my pregnancy was terrible. I don't think it should be this badge of honor. I think we should be able to say, no, I deserve to feel really well and I deserve to feel good. So I think a lot of it comes down to, kind of not accepting that is the way things have to be.
Yeah. I also think that it wasn't talked about as much.
Absolutely.
So certainly, if I think back to my own mother, she would never have said that she was suffering.
Yeah.
It's like, I just got through it and that was fine. Because it was like stiff upper lip and we just get on with it.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether as well, sometimes we try to live up to those expectations and other people's expectations that you just soldier on and get on with it.
Yeah. But also, I think, a lot of us have a lot going on and maybe we feel like we don't have the time to be able to investigate it, but also does taking something further pull away from, everything else that's on your plate?
Yes.
We're busy. There's a lot of things to be thinking about. So I do get it. But if your fatigue or if your periods are getting in the way of your life, they deserve to be investigated.
Yeah, absolutely. Face the Future's obviously known for skin. That's our clinical heritage. From your perspective, how closely linked do you think the skin and the way the skin looks and feels is to internal health?
So linked. They are like that. And I think, you see it in yourself if you've had a weekend where maybe you have had more sugar or processed foods or more alcohol, that then you see it and you feel it. Super related. It's, everything from how your gut health, your gut microbiome and your skin microbiome are closely linked.
Yes.
So if you have a gut microbiome that is a little bit imbalanced, maybe we might see that in your skin. Your nutrients, again, I feel like I harp on so much about nutrients, but they're so key.
Absolutely.
So if you're not eating a variety of different foods and you're not getting a variety of different nutrients, that may then show up in your skin and your hair and your nails. But again, like stress, and if you are feeling depleted and if you're not getting enough food in general, all of that will then show up externally as well.
Yeah. And I think there is more education around that. So I think most people would now realise there's a connection between what you're eating and the way that how you see your skin.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think there's still quite a bit of research to be done or for the education to come out is around fatigue and sleep and the effect that actually has on your skin.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think again, when you are not sleeping and when you are, you might be waking up in the middle of the night, it might be taking ages to fall asleep. And then when you do fall asleep, it's not very high quality. Your stress response increases.
Yes.
And if we are constantly pumping out these stress hormones, your body doesn't want to send its resources and its energy to your skin or your hair, because your hair and your skin aren't going to save your life. So if you're stressed, your body wants to send its fuel to your legs, to your lungs.
Yes.
So if you're not sleeping well, then yes, your skin is probably the last thing that it's thinking about. But also you don't, we repair during sleep. So you're not giving your body enough time to repair.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned hair. Again, that's one of the things that our customers are talking to us all the time now about, this hair loss. So why do you think that that's becoming such a big issue now as well?
Yeah, and I think it is very, again, common, but not normal. We're talking about it more.
Yes.
Maybe once upon a time it was a little bit shameful to admit. But like with myself, I would see my doctor and it wasn't life-threatening, even though
it's the difficulty, isn't it?
Exactly. And I accept that, and that's okay. But when you are losing hair in the shower every day, oh my goodness, it's so stressful and it's so tough. It's similar with fatigue. So if you are losing hair, I'm thinking about your thyroid because that is, it's your master gland of metabolism. I'm thinking about iron levels, but also your hormones can play a role. So if your hormones are low, or in PCOS, if they're high, that will then affect those hair follicles and we'll see hair loss happen.
Yeah. And I remember speaking actually to a hairdresser who said to me, you need to be aware of what your natural cycle is in terms of your hair shedding.
Yes.
And then if there's anything beyond the normal shedding process, that's when there could be potentially something underlying. Don't just think it's normal for you to be losing hair all the time.
Yes, definitely. What is normal for you might look very different to someone else. And monitoring things, it's easy to get really obsessed, especially when you're worried about something. But monitoring is quite a good way to approach it.
So we've talked about quite a lot of different symptoms and we've talked about different things that could cause those. How easy do you think it is for somebody to actually connect the dots? Because certainly from my own experience, it took a major thing to happen for me then to go back and start connecting all the dots.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone's the same. What's your experience in terms of speaking to your customers?
It's hard. I think I see a lot of women who are the beginning and they say, I'm feeling this way. I don't want to be feeling this way. I've also got this other symptom that isn't quite right.
Yes.
Could they be connected? But I think it does take, I work with women every single day.
Yes.
And my brain almost now has this default setting where I create this puzzle and all of these lines are attached to this symptom and that symptom. So I think that it's okay if it doesn't come naturally, or it's okay if you feel confused.
Yes.
The amount of information on the internet does not help. We are flooded with conflicting advice.
Yes.
But it's also okay to ask for professional help from someone that can actually look at you, zoom out and say, look, I think your hair loss is a result of this, which may also be the reason why you are feeling fatigued in the afternoon.
Yeah. Is that something that we should be doing more of? Because often, again, when I speak to my friends or I have customers ringing me up, they will talk to me about one specific thing, but actually we should be connecting the dots and not just trying to solve one issue, it's all of the issues are interconnected.
Yes, it's very easy to treat the symptoms. So when you have, if you've got breakouts or if you've got, we use hair loss as an example, it's very easy to want to go in and solve that problem.
Yes.
It's also okay to use products and find solutions to short-term improve things, because if that makes you feel a bit less stressed and if it makes you feel happier, amazing. But ideally, we want to understand why they're happening and get to the root so we solve them long-term rather than just in the short term.
Perfect. So you've talked a lot about nutrition. What about supplements then, Megan? Where do supplements come into it and what role do they play?
Yeah, supplements can be amazing. We love supplements. I always say that supplements should just do that. They should supplement.
Yes.
So ideally, you are not leading with a supplement. Ideally, your diet is feeling really well-rounded and it's varied and you're eating enough and you're enjoying what you're eating.
Yes.
And then you come in and fill the gaps with the supplements. So for example, if someone doesn't eat fish, maybe we introduce an omega-3.
Yes.
Again, like certain things, if someone isn't in the sun or if, we can't get a lot of B12 through the diet, then we bring that in through supplementation.
Okay. And I guess that's where you were saying that everyone is different. So that's where actually a more personalised approach is really important, because not one size fits all. So talk me through a little bit more about Noah then, because obviously it's a very personalised approach. So talk me through Noah and what what makes you different from the traditional, you just need an omega or you just need this.
Yes. So we had found when we looked at kind of the current landscape, again, there's too much information.
Yes.
So everyone is feeling a bit confused and overwhelmed with what they should be doing. So they either don't do anything or they try everything.
Yes.
And then it's a lot of money that's being wasted, or it's potentially harmful. So you're maybe taking things that you don't need.
Yes.
What we wanted to do was quiet the noise and allow our customers to kind of gain clarity, but also gain this plan that was just for them, not for their best friend, not for anyone else, designed based on their test results, but also their symptoms.
Yes.
So we run very comprehensive blood tests that look at nutrients, thyroid, hormones. We look at cholesterol, blood sugar, and liver and kidney. We then have a very comprehensive questionnaire that you fill out. It's about your family history, your lifestyle, medication, supplements that you're taking. And then I use all that information, or someone from our team uses all that information to create a plan that includes nutrition recommendations, lifestyle recommendations, and supplement recommendations.
So actually, they're paying for the plan, but they're ultimately potentially saving money because of the amount of supplements that they may be taking that aren't actually right for them.
Absolutely. And we test. So not only do we test we have a very comprehensive panel, we're very picky with those markers. So you may go to your GP, complain about fatigue, but they're not necessarily testing every single marker, and they're potentially looking at your normal result.
Yes.
But if you've got low normal levels and you're still feeling it, we want to take it seriously. So yes, we hopefully save you money, but also we're very picky because we want you feeling amazing. We don't just want you feeling good.
So just talk us through a bit more about those blood markers, because some of our listeners, this will be the first time that they'll have heard of that. So, why are blood markers so important, specifically for somebody like yourself who's a nutritionist, in making the right recommendations?
When it comes to taking supplements, let's say, if you take too much of a nutrient that you don't need, that could be dangerous. Like I said, it can reach toxic levels and you may feel worse off for it.
Okay.
And it's very normal to say, do you know what? I know B12 is good for fatigue. I'm going to take some B12. But actually, if your vitamin D is low, we're not really going to see that difference if you don't have an issue with that B12. So from my perspective, it's about having accurate data, and then I can put a plan in place with not only the right nutrients, but the right levels of those nutrients. A lot of over-the-counter or kind of direct-to-consumer supplements may not have enough of a certain nutrient in there. So when you work with a nutritionist, we can just get so specific to what you need.
Perfect. So actually it's very data-driven. I didn't realise it was so data-driven.
Yeah, and we use symptoms as data. So even if, I work with someone that has amazing blood results, but they are seeing, breakouts, maybe they have hair growth in certain places, I'm able to use that data, put the pieces together, and then create recommendations based on symptoms as well.
This might be an exclusive for our listeners, but we are going to be partnering together, aren't we? And being able to offer the Noah plan via the Face the Future website. Why do you think that a partnership with somebody like Face the Future is so important?
Yeah, and I think that getting supplements is a minefield.
Yes.
So really it comes down to quality and making sure you buy them from somewhere that you trust. So we are, so excited to have our input for your customers and be able to tell them exactly what they need, but also for us to have recommendations and a really safe, trusted place in which our customers can buy their supplements.
Yeah. And I think there's such synergies between the two brands. You're very education focused, and of course Face the Future are very education focused, and we do now talk about wellness as a whole. So actually to be able to include nutrition and supplements in that, knowing what we know around the links and the connections, just means it's a much more joined up approach, doesn't it? Rather than we talked earlier, just dealing with one of the symptoms but not the overall root cause.
Definitely. And I think sometimes you do need lots of pieces to it. Like my own skin struggled with acne for so long, and it wasn't really until I really got on top of my skincare that I felt everything was a bit more manageable. So that's why it's so lovely. It's this holistic partnership.
Absolutely. Well, we all know that what you're putting into your body reflects on the outer part of your body. And it's taken people a while to recognise that, but people are now realizing that and looking at the research and looking at all the press releases and the education that's out there, and thinking I need to do more than just put topical creams on if I want the desired effect. It has to be more than that.
Definitely.
If somebody has been listening to the podcast today and they recognize some of the symptoms that we've talked about, where would you advise them to start in terms of finding a solution?
So, of course, we want you to come to us. I will say, start by writing down what those symptoms are. Maybe jot down what you're eating. And again, if you're taking any supplements, pop all of those down. And maybe we can start to understand whether there's any gaps on your own. Of course, we do that job. So we would start by looking at what someone's eating, we'd look through their questionnaire results, look at their blood tests, create that lovely personalized plan. But you also get the chance to have a really in-depth conversation with myself or one of our nutritionists, so we can talk you through those symptoms and what it all means.
Okay. And is there any common misconceptions or things that are regularly missed by women when they speak to you in relation to the health? So they might be jotting things down and then joining some of the dots, but is there anything that's commonly missed by women?
Like I said at the beginning, the impact of stress. So, I speak to so many women who say, I eat so well, I eat enough, I have a really lovely range of different foods in my diet. Why do I still feel this way? So I think we then consider the stress part of things.
Well, it's not visible, is it?
Exactly.
That's the issue.
And also we normalize it. It may just be that you've lived a certain way for years and it is your norm. So that's usually a puzzle piece that tends to be missing. Like I said, a lot of us have been dieting throughout our whole lives. So we don't always understand what the proper amount of food is to fuel our bodies now and across the different life stages as well. So those are usually quite a big gap there.
And when someone starts to make a difference, how long does it take for them to actually see the results? Because one of the things that I'm noticing more and more, certainly with the influence of social media, is people expect instant results. Because that's what we're told happens in terms of what you see on on social media. So realistically, Megan, how long will it take if somebody comes and gets the advice and guidance and then implements that? How long is that going to take?
Yeah. And it is different for everyone because it's different depending on where you are starting. So if you've had years and years of hormone issues or stress, or you've had years and years of deficiencies, that may take you longer than someone who, you know, has recently been experiencing issues. So it depends where you're starting. It also depends on how able you are to implement all the changes. Are you going to take the supplements but not change your diet? So those two things considered. When it comes to energy and vitality, if everything's correct and we've lined up nicely, a few weeks or so, it really can be as quick, although we don't love quick fixes, as a couple of weeks. For your hormones, I usually say 3 to 6 months because things work in cycles. So yeah, if you're looking at energy, if we're thinking about sleep, vitality, within a few weeks to months. But yeah, hormones take a little bit longer.
Okay. And does aging impact on that? Because certainly, again, when I'm speaking to customers and they want the instant results, I always say to them, you know, obviously if you're younger, in terms of your skin regenerating, it does it quicker. So you could get quicker results younger, but when you're a bit older, you might need 3, 4, 5 months to actually see a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Certain processes in our body slow down. For example, you know, we find that you can't tolerate alcohol as well, especially during perimenopause, when your hormones are doing these massive fluctuations. So collagen production slows, muscle, gaining muscle is harder. So things do change. May mean you need to work a little bit harder, but equally, if the right plan is in place, there's no reason why you shouldn't feel amazing.
Perfect. So before the podcast, Megan, we asked you what you want to ask our community and our listeners. Can you remember what that was?
Yes.
It's all right. I've got it written down. I do a lot of our guests come and say, I can't remember what I think. So the question that we asked our listeners was, if you could understand one thing better about how your body works, what would it be?
Yes.
As you would imagine, a lot of our listeners are very skin focused. So the community asked lots about their skin. So is my skin aging faster than I expected? Why is that? Is aging skin just age? Or is it something else? How much of aging is actually happening internally before we see it externally? And can skin sometimes be an early warning sign that something deeper is out of balance?
So to the last question, your hormones. So estrogen is plumping and hydrating. So if you are really seeing in your skin that things are changing much quicker than what is normal, it could be a little flag that actually let's look at what your hormones are doing. Again, collagen production changes as we age. So things do slow down, and that's why we see things change. I think the interesting part, and what we find now with HRT, or at least the HRT has become a little bit more popular or widely accepted as a useful tool, is that we don't just have to accept that you get to a certain point and your hormones drop. We can use the right forms of HRT to support that decline. So hopefully it doesn't just feel like one day you wake up and you don't recognize yourself. But I always like to say, you know, even if things are changing, we want to support the foundations that make those changes feel more severe. So if you're stressed, if you're not sleeping well, if your diet is high in sugar or processed foods that may be a little bit inflammatory, that will probably speed up the process as well.
And again, it's that visibility, isn't it? So you see your face all of the time in reflections and everything. So you're more likely to identify that there's been a change there.
We should be kinder to ourselves.
I know. I always say be kinder. We're our own worst enemy. Our community then went out and talked about how long it actually takes for products or supplements to work. So we've already talked about this, but they're saying, you know, does it take weeks or even months? Or sometimes people are saying that actually they don't see a difference at all. So I guess that's actually they haven't found the right solution.
Definitely,
People have then said, obviously, that some people are giving up too quickly because it's not meeting their expectations. And then one that I found quite interesting is consistency more important than intensity? Answers yes.
Definitely.
All the time.
Absolutely. You know, you can have the perfect plan and do it for a week and fall off. or a plan that actually, is good enough, but you
Yes.
keep it up for the rest of your life, you're going to see results with the one that's good enough.
Yeah, perfect. And we've talked a little bit about this as well. There was a whole load of questions in about why our community still feel tired or exhausted, even when they're technically healthy.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that normal blood results. So one of the things was, why do I have a normal blood test, but I still feel awful?
Yeah.
I feel tired all the time. Is it just a byproduct of modern life? I eat healthy, I take supplements, and I exercise regularly. So why do I still feel so tired?
Yeah.
And then how much are hormones, blood sugar, and sleep quality impacting on my energy? Well, we've had a big discussion about that, and it's key, isn't it?
Definitely. The last one, absolutely, it's everything.
Yes.
But also, if everything is normal on your blood test results, I would always question them.
Yes.
What does normal look like? Because these reference ranges are so big.
Yes.
And, if you are at the lower end or the upper end of normal, can we get things even better?
And also it depends on what blood markers are being tested, doesn't it? So you could go to a GP and they say that your blood levels are normal, but actually what have they tested to say that your blood levels are normal?
Yeah,
if something doesn't feel right, it's genuinely not right.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Get a bit more of a personalised view on your health.
Yeah, and use those symptoms as well. Use those symptoms as the data to push forward the further investigations, And there's so many different blood markers we can test. Don't just accept a couple and have that as that's what's going on.
Absolutely. And then the final thing that our community asked, why two people can do exactly the same thing and get completely different results. I know we've touched on this slightly, but we've had comments around that they eat the same foods as somebody else, but actually the effect is completely different, that they exercise the same amount, but they're seeing very different results, that actually they're getting more sleep than their partner, but they feel just so much more tired than them.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm taking the same supplements as my partner, but actually it's working for them, but not for me.
Yeah. If you are in a relationship with a man, they are so different. We had always assumed that women were just small men. So all the research was done on men. We are so different. Our hormones play such a big role. We weren't included in studies because our hormones are so unpredictable.
Yes.
It's interesting, our gut microbiomes play a really big role in how you feel. So if you're having the same food as someone else, your gut bugs may just be metabolizing and fermenting the food differently to someone else. So it's your gut, again, it's your stress levels.
Yes.
It is if there's any pre-existing conditions, insulin, metabolism as well plays a really big role. So we're all so different, and it's okay to please don't compare yourself to someone else.
Yeah, perfect. So in terms of the one bit of advice for our listeners to take away, what would that be? I know you've said logged things.
Yeah.
If they're just going to do one thing, what would your guidance to them be?
Yeah, I think test, don't guess. I think if you can, if you're confused, if you're feeling really overwhelmed and you just don't understand why things aren't changing with a really healthy diet, get things tested, because that is can sometimes be a bit of a light bulb moment.
Absolutely. And it takes the guesswork out of it for you, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, time and money as well.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that actually everything that we've talked about today has been really interesting. And actually it's through conversations like this that really highlight that there's so many symptoms that women experience day to day that aren't isolated and that they are connected. So as I said, Megan, thanks so much for sharing your insight. Really, really appreciated it. And I know that many of our listeners will actually recognise some of the symptoms in themselves that we've discussed. I hope this episode has encouraged you to think about your health and, of course, your skin in a much more connected and considered way. Please don't forget to like, share and follow us on your preferred platform. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on Skincare and Beyond with Face the Future. Take care.